Welcome to Old Town, the birthplace of San Diego, the first permanent Spanish settlement in California. It remained the heart of San Diego until the 1860s, when Newtown was introduced. Mason Street School is the oldest schoolhouse in San Diego and was located in the center of Old Town. In 1769, Father Junipero Serra established the first mission, and the Presidio was established just up the hill. In 1968, the California Department of Parks and Recreation established Old Town as a state history park.
So, first there were indigenous native folk here, the Kumeyaay. They had a village here called Kasoy. They were nomadic. They didn't have a structure. They had iwas, which were huts. And they would move with their food sources. So they would come down here to the ocean and where the river met, and they would fish and hunt, and then they would move up into the mountains and the chaparral because one of their main diet sources was acorn from the scrub oak. So they made that into a mash. One day, all of a sudden, the big Spanish galleon comes into the harbor. It was probably like an alien to them. They'd never seen anything like this. They didn't know if they should get ready to fight or they should be friendly. They decided to be friendly. The men came ashore, they fed them acorns, and they left. No. The men came ashore. It was Juan Cabrillo. He's one of the first people that came here in 1542. And he was looking for riches and exploring for the king in Spain. They didn't find much in the way of riches in his diaries. He wrote, "There's some benign natives here, but there's not a lot as far as riches. It's very much a barren desert. We're going to keep going." So they kept going up north. They actually claimed this for Spain and called it San Miguel. The Spanish would name the settlements where they claimed after the closest saint feast day. So it was the feast of St. Michael was the closest saint feast day. So they named it San Miguel. Sadly for Juan Cabrillo, he went up the coast. He fell and broke his arm on the ship. He ended up dying of gangrene. Word never got back to Spain about him claiming San Miguel here. It took another 70 years before another Spanish galleon came into the harbor. The natives that were elderly were probably like, "I remember when this happened before. Feed them some acorns, they'll keep going." So this Caño came ashore. He claimed at this time, and it was the closest feast day was the Feast of St. Didacus. So they called it San Diego. He also was here for a very short amount of time, didn't find much in the way of riches, and he went north as well. It wasn't until another 70 years or so they started to come overland. The missionaries were building the missions in Mexico. In Baja California, there are 23 missions. They started to come into what is called Alta, which is above, and build the missions here. The first mission in Alta California was at the top of the hill here where the Presidio is. They also put a fort there around because they were afraid the Russians were coming down from the north because the Russians had established Fort Ross up there. So the Spanish wanted to get here and claim this area. They were up there with the mission for about 5 years. They moved the mission 6 miles east of here because the main mission for the friars and the padres was to convert the native Kumeyaay to Catholicism. If you're not treating them very well, it's not easy to get people to come to your religion. So they moved so they had more control over converting the natives. What ends up happening? 1821, Mexico gets their independence from Spain. It takes a long time for word to get here. This is very much an outpost frontier town. It takes a long time for word to get here from Mexico City. When the Mexican cavalry finally comes through, they're telling these Spanish soldiers, "What are you guys still doing here? Go back to Spain." Of course, they don't have the wherewithal to do that. Most of them had married local women. They had families. They wanted to stay. So the Comandante Estudillo made a deal with the Mexican government. "Give me and my men some land at the bottom of the hill to build our homes, and we will still guard the area." That's how we started to have the adobe structures here that are permanent structures here in the early 1820s. Some of them are still here. Some of the oldest homes in California are right here in Old Town. And then from that, they started to have a beautiful ranching business here where they had free-range cattle ranches, they had hide and tallow trades, lots of ships coming around from New England, all the way around Cape Horn. There was no Panama Canal at the time. They would come all the way around Panama Canal. They would also go across to Asia and to Hawaii because it's easier to go across the ocean and then come up with the trade winds and go downwind on a coast. So they would go to San Francisco and then come down to come to San Diego. These ships would be full of all kinds of goods from everywhere. They were like floating malls out in the harbor. The women of the town would get rowed out and they would shop all day. That's how we have come to have so many different kinds of porcelain and pottery, different kinds of wooden items, because this is very much a desert here. We didn't have huge pieces of wood to build houses and things. That's why they made adobe, which is a sun-dried brick. When the Americans took over the area from Mexico after the Mexico-US War, 1846, more Americans started to come out here because what it was discovered in 1848, 1849, gold. Lots of people started to come here. The population would go up and down according to what was going on in the area. And so they had a lovely little community here. The hide and tallow trade went on, and then that sort of went out of favor when the Americans took over, and this became more of like a shipping port and a military town. And as we know, over time, the military bases got built here. We had World War I, World War II. Lots of people were coming here, and Old Town kind of became known as Old Town. They built more of the city down by the harbor, and that's why San Diego's government is now down by the harbor and not here. And so this became more like a touristy area. In 1969, the California State Parks took it over to bring it back to the historic park that you see now, and to preserve and save some of these beautiful homes.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.